welcome back to Gamer Noob. Today we are talking about our Outlaws campaign, which we just finished, and we're all super excited about and super sad that we don't get to do all our fun accents and play around in space and blow things up and all that fun
You
jazz.
mean you're not going to talk as Jyla this entire time?
I wish.
If you wish, you can. Like, you physically are able to do this.
I'm physically able.
I will do this entire recording in the character of
Camilla.
Camilla, yeah. I forgot the character's name.
Perfect.
I mean, I can do that. Sully and Camilla are best buds.
Well, now we've got the continuity of Cody forgetting names, so this is, this can be canon. So I want to talk about Cody, your original conception was for the game, and like kind of what it was in your head before we, came in and played in your sandbox.
Before we came in and
threw sand around and everything.
We broke everything.
Kicked over all his toys.
So what was your original story circle? Just like your vision from the beginning? What was that like?
So my original idea for this was I think it was that I was at the time getting into Warhammer 40K. And I say I was getting into it. I really wasn't. I was fascinated by the lore, kind of. Like, I just found it interesting. So because of that, I had liked this idea of like a space marine talking to someone from Star Trek. And then that just kind of turned into, so a fun setting would be, what if all of these things existed in the universe together? So, you figure you have an infinite galaxy with infinite possibilities. That would mean somewhere there's a space marine, and also somewhere there is the Federation, and also somewhere there is Star Wars, and also somewhere there are Romulans. So I just kind of wanted to do everything all crammed into one setting, and just not necessarily explicitly, but also not really even pretending to hide the fact that it was meant to be tropey and meant to be derivative. Like, I was not pretending like I wasn't copying stuff. I was not pretending like it was something original. It was just, okay, the setting is anything could be in here. And the original name was Galactic Pulp until you changed it.
Right.
But that was like the initial kickoff in my mind of what the setting was going to be.
Right, yeah. Where did we as a party go where you least expected it to, like metaphorically speaking? How did you originally imagine our trajectory through quests? Was there a big branching point in the story?
Yeah, kind of. So there were like 3 in different ways. So the original story, like as I had it plotted out, was pretty similar, right? So I'm actually curious now. I haven't actually looked at this in a very long time. But I have my original like 8 steps.
Ooh.
That it's not really all that close to
Well, hit us.
What happened?
So there was going to be a lot more stuff with the cult. Like that there was like a cult of chaos that was forming up, and you would find like little whispers of.
We saw that most prominently on Avis, correct? With Truth?
Yeah, right. So what I knew it was going to be, like, what I knew the general story was going to be was your original mission as Outlaws was to try to keep fights from escalating throughout the galaxy, right? So you really weren't affiliated with any faction. It was more that, like, you just kind of stepped in and tried to keep people from killing each other as much as possible. Especially on, like, kind of, like, forgotten and, like, less important planets, right? So the first mission was very much that. It was a backwater no one cared about that just kept descending into fight after fight after fight because it was, like, a border world between 2 factions that they just kept fighting over.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was gonna kind of transition into, no matter how hard you tried to do that, things kept falling apart until that kind of hit a critical mass of the universe just falls apart, even though you're doing everything right, which was Avis, right? That was Avis falls to chaos.
Right.
And then you have to go and find out why Avis falls to chaos, what chaos is, how to stop it, then come back and stop chaos. Now, in my original mind, and I talked, I think especially with Zach about this, is whoever, like, took up the mantle of Harmony, that character was originally, like, basically doomed to die In kind of. It was supposed to be that, well, I say supposed to be. My original thought, if I was writing this story, was going to be Sully would basically have to lock himself into constant combat with Chaos to keep Chaos from running amok.
And we pointed out that that was like the setup for a different series of like things going poorly.
So we had a brief interruption from babies. So back into it. So originally the plan was that someone was going to have to basically sacrifice themselves to be in a constant struggle with Chaos. And my rationale for that was the, like, initial kickoff for the arc, or, like, the story was, like, Vinny, help me, the third law of thermodynamics? That any closed system tends towards chaos without the, like, input of external force or something like that.
Sure, I don't remember which law is which.
You know, actually, I think I have it written down. Hang on. Second law of thermodynamics states that all closed systems tend to maximize entropy. And then people never say the second part, though. Reversing this ever-increasing tendency towards disorder requires the input of energy. So the idea was that this struggle against chaos is basically constant. So there's no beating it. There's always, this concept is always going to exist, and it would require constant effort to undo it, basically. So that was why initially I had that thought. So that was like a large divergent. It wasn't like within the game. We talked about it outside of it, because once Sully kind of grabbed the sword and we kind of got a little bit further into the game, I was like, okay, we need to talk about this and make sure that that's not going to be like I've ruined the game for you guys because I, like, dropped this hammer on you, so we ended up going a different direction with it.
Well, like, to me with that, like, it felt like kind of like a lame story in some ways. No offense, Cody.
No, I mean, it's
It just felt like the continuation of the story that was already told, like, a billion times before we started the game, where it's like, Harmony dies, new Harmony comes, beats up Chaos, Chaos dies, new Chaos comes, beats up Harmony. I didn't feel like we were...
Yeah, and that's not something I entirely disagree with within the theme. So, that is kind of true now. The difference is that all of you are still working as a team proactively to stop chaos, like, as within the galaxy, right? But that's a constant effort that has to be made. Like, there is never a point where peace is eternal and guaranteed. You have to make the effort to stop things from falling apart.
Right.
Kind of the point of the story is that you never get to take a break. There's never a time when, everything's fine now and we don't have to work at it anymore. You always have to be making effort. And the galaxy that you started with was already fractured, was already divided. You were basically already losing the fight. And Chaos was just trying to make it worse, right? So they were trying to stir up border conflicts. They were basically the opposite of the Outlaws, which was kind of, again, like, originally there was going to be more of like there's a mysterious cult in the background, which kind of there was, but not as much as I had originally planned. And that was supposed to be like the mirror image of the Outlaws, right? So the Outlaws are effort to reduce entropy, and the cult of chaos is just trying to stoke the fires of chaos.
Accelerate it. Yeah.
So it's these two sides that are constantly pushing at each other. I like the way we ended up better. It just wasn't what I had originally planned. So that was a large divergent point. I would say the other two things were making Lucy exist, just because I didn't plan for that at all. I was entirely your guys' agency. And also the Keepers, really, that was not supposed to be what happened in that arc necessarily. Like, kind of it was, but you just gave your ship to the Keepers and basically, like, grounded yourselves and shot yourselves in the foot for the sake of saving all these people that I didn't necessarily think you were going to save all of, so I was like, oh, okay, cool. So they basically became a new faction in the galaxy of, like, these dishomed keepers. So I actually really liked that because it was something, again, I hadn't planned on being as involved.
Yeah.
You liked it so much, you murdered all of them at Homestead.
I didn't murder all of them. I murdered some of them.
So we were talking about theme and, like, how a game master has themes in mind sometimes of how they want that to play out in the game, but RPGs are really different from other narratives when you get to control all the characters. But I personally thought the theme of working together despite differences really shone through. Both in personal relationships between characters and in the main plot that we were doing. So what did you do to guide the game to themes you wanted to explore when you couldn't control all the pieces on the board, like you were saying? And like, what would you suggest to somebody, to another game master who maybe has some themes, like what works and what doesn't in giving that to the game without mandating what happens?
So I think a lot of it is kind of setting up like chances to be good people in a way that I think your characters would find appealing. So this is actually kind of something from the last game that I ran, where I was like, okay, so none of us really buy that I'm going to party wipe you guys, so that's not really the tension in a scene. But I'm like, but things can go worse. You know what I mean? Like, you can mess up your rolls, and then other people might get hurt, you know?
Right.
So kind of what I wanted to do with this is give opportunities to not handle things in a wrong way, or give opportunities to like risk yourself for the sake of helping someone else, right? So like the good examples of this were Vika fixing the Guild of Commerce ship, which like forever basically meant that Waylon was someone who would help you. Like, owes you a life debt, his ship should be gone, except that Vika killed herself to save the ship. So, like, that...
Right, and she loses memories of her son and everything that happened. Yeah, and so that's like a personal stake. Right. It's a role-playing stake, then, instead of, like, life or death or plot stakes.
Yeah, you're not going to lose the character. You can keep playing that character, but in the narrative, there's consequences, and to Waylon, he doesn't know that. Well, he doesn't know that right away, that Vika would come back in some form. Like, he didn't know that. So he just thought Vika had killed herself to save his crew. And then also, Malcolm giving away your ship to help the keepers. Like, but the way I did that was, like, make vaguely likable people and then put them in danger from something worse, you know?
You nature documentary us.
Yeah, right.
See this keeper? Yes. She's a caterpillar? Yes. Do you love her? Yes. Now the caterpillar's in danger. Oh no!
Well, and I think the trickiest one really was Waylon, because I kind of had to make him likable, but also an antagonist for like 3/4 of that arc, you know?
I think one of my favorite moments was interacting with him when I got to adopt the horrible Southern accent.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was really good.
I still think about that moment, and it still makes me laugh.
That's great, yeah.
That was also something that was really, that going to, like, what you change is, like, you're like, yeah, I made the Ferengi, and then Caitlin's like, I'm doing a Southern accent, and you're like, all right, they're all gentlemen dandies now.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny is the way the Ferengi were referred to in Star Trek was they're Yankee traders. So I originally imagined them being far more like Northern North American, you know, like, yeah, like Bostonian kind of sounding. And then Caitlin was Southern. I'm like, all right, so Foghorn Leghorn's all the way down. Which I think, I don't know if we ever said, but Laura Lee, which the NPC who has 5 names, she was supposed to be from the Guild of Commerce, which I don't think I ever explicitly stated, but she also kind of had a Southern accent.
I don't know if you did, but that was another thing that I really liked about how you did factions, and like you made them, I think you did this with Laura Lee, giving her a Southern accent so that you kind of know, like, she's got a Guild of Commerce background.
Yeah.
And then, like, with the imposition, you've got...
There's, like, a manner of speech.
Lucy. Yeah, there was a really distinct manner of speech that came across in Lucy, who is friendly to us, Marilla, who is male, Marilla, who is female and unfriendly to us, or at least suspicious. And she has, like, the same manner of speaking, but, like, her tone comes across so differently. But we know she's from the imposition.
Yeah, she's supposed to seem threatening, yeah.
Right, yeah. So I was really impressed by your ability to capture that in not even an accent, just a mode of speech, and still convey age and gender and intention.
Well, and he also had, what was his name? the clone slug guy was also there.
Evander.
Yeah.
Evander, and then the Grand Leader of the Imposition, who also all have that thing, but all sound drastically different.
And what's his name, too? Lay Magistrate Norn. Same way. Yeah.
On the dialogue thing, I also appreciated that, like, the Keepers were also, like, weird like Sully. You know, like, you didn't, like, give them an accent, like, specifically for the Keepers, but, like, they started having, like, weird personality or, like, vocal quirks.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Camilla said the, like, if you will, at least once, like the Spagic.
Oh, yeah.
And she had other things where, like, they would say things a little bit weirder than everyone else. Like, add extra words that were unnecessary.
Yeah, there was a mode of speak, and I mean, especially, like, between Camilla and you, she was supposed to be kind of, like, the opposite type of keeper from you, so she spoke a little bit more bluntly and, like, less philosophically. But you can tell that there was a background of it. Yeah, that was...
Yeah, no, I liked it.
The NPCs that I'm proud of, I thought I did a good job with having a pretty distinctive voice in my head. I think especially like Camilla, Lucy, Waylon, I think those ones had very, like, specific ways that they were supposed to talk and personalities.
Yeah, and I think that's really nice, especially for people running a game who are uncomfortable with, like, breaking out a bunch of accents like Matt Mercer style, you know?
Yeah, it gets hard. It gets hard.
That there is a way to distinguish people without having to be really fluent in all of these things.
Yeah, and I think that cadence is definitely one that's maybe underused, is that you can adjust not just your accent, but also your, like, rhythm of speech to sound like a different person.
I mean, but cadence is exactly what I did with Sully. I dropped my voice an octave and then just started speaking very slowly.
Yeah, so I really liked that, and I think it's a good thing for other GMs to use.
The one that I matched most closely to Sully, the one where I was basically aping your voice, was the guy that was sitting under a tree that was like your spiritual guide. Yeah, that was the one where I was like, okay, I'm going to copy Sully's voice and just make him sound like Sully. Because I just pitched my voice down and spoke really slow. Yeah.
The one problem with making my cadence slower is that there are times where I'm like, I just want to talk. I just want to talk normal. I don't want to have a 2-second pause between every word. Please let me out of this suffering that I chose for myself.
So, open it up to the crew. How did y'all's characters change from conception, when you first thought of them, to endgame?
Well,
what was most surprising?
I did not expect to become God. You know, that was a little different. I also didn't expect to romance the most chaotic person I've ever met.
Well, yeah, that's worth talking about, is that we did not set out at the beginning of this game to have a romance with each other.
Yeah, we're just like, we'll see what happens. And like, our characters were just like, oh, like, they were like, oh, they're going to be like, at each other's throats, because like your character was Gila's very reckless, and Sully is like the opposite of that, and we kind of like talked a little bit about like
him being a straight man to that,
right? And like kind of just like making fun of her like for like constantly being in medbay and blowing herself up, which like we referenced a few times where like she blew up a stove. Like this is like the second time you've blown up a stove, you know, and like references to that. But beyond that, we're just like, you know, like, I think they, like, know each other, but, like, don't really get along.
But yeah, we did not set out to do a romance, and then there was the scene with, Gila and Sully floating in space, and Sully decides to stay with her and, like, die and get clone slugged instead of, like, grabbing onto the ship when he has the chance and saving himself and letting her drift off into space alone. And then after that, I was like, okay, you know, I could see something happen.
Was that actually like organically within the game that just kind of like happened?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think Zach had kind of had an eye for like, oh, you know, like maybe this could work out. And I was like, I don't really see it. It's like, sorry.
I think what happened, I think I kind of like got some of those vibes a little bit, but I think the real thing was like after that, we're like, do they get in a relationship after this like deeply raw and intimate experience they have where they both almost die? And we're like, I think they do.
Yeah, so for me that was organic. Like after that, I was like, okay, I can see this.
Yeah.
I can see this happening as a relationship. How about Vinny and Mandy? How did your characters change from beginning to end? Or your thoughts to how they turned out?
Yeah, so I think for Vika, Vi didn't change a lot personality wise throughout the whole game. Because I think I, as a player, kind of got a little bit screwed over in our first arc. If you go back and listen, that was when we had babies. Those babies are now 3.5 years old.
Yep.
Which is crazy. But at the time, mine especially wanted to be on the floor and crawling and doing all that stuff. So I ended up on the floor a lot because I couldn't pass him off to Cody. Cody was running the game.
Right.
So Vi unfortunately got really underdeveloped in the very beginning. Like the first 4 to 5 episodes where I think it is really important to like find that character, my brain was not there at all.
Yeah.
I was, so I pretty much stuck with like very, straight-laced and, like a rough gunslinger type character. And I don't think she changed a whole lot throughout this. I think where her character arc came in, it was that in the beginning, really, her family like shunned her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And as the game kind of went on, she, you know, we talked about this in the epilogue, but it's like, you know, she was trying to contact her family as much as she could, but then it's kind of like the realization that like, well, I guess they don't care as much and I'm doing my own thing here. So it was this separation between her and her family. And the arc was at the very end, she and her son, which by extension, the rest of her family, we just didn't cover that because I wasn't going to talk to myself since the other 2 kids were voiced by me. And they had that familial reconciliation. But like family was always like a really big part of her core. And it was nice to be able to have that come back. And I really liked that. I think I miss that I couldn't make certain things more distinct, but I'm like really, really happy with what the character went through and how she ended.
Yeah, I thought the scene with Marvin in the epilogue was really, really good.
I agree.
Vinny, how about you?
So with Mal, I'm not really sure. I don't feel like I changed him too much from what I imagined. Like, honestly, a lot of his changes were towards the end. So, little peek behind the curtain. Mandy and I had discussed a potential for a Vi-Mal romance, but it didn't really. In the plot of the storyline, it just didn't make sense to do. Like, we talked about it and decided, okay, this isn't the time to do that. And then it just didn't end up happening, which is fine. I was absolutely fine with how it ended. And we also then left it kind of open to, they're traveling together now, who knows where the relationship goes from there.
Right, yeah.
But I did put an emphasis towards the end of Mal trying to go out of his way for her to kind of hint at that, even though it never materialized. And by the time we got to the last couple arcs, I didn't expect it to materialize because Mandy and I had already talked about it. But I wanted to make it apparent that Mal was trying to be close to her and trying to help her and trying to do things like little things wherever.
It was a character connection that would go into the future,
right,
without being labeled something specific.
Yeah, that particular thing was something I never imagined Mal. Like, that's the thing. You guys all end up pairing off in our campaigns, and I'm just over here, like, just being how is it that my characters always end up asexual? I don't know. It's not intentional. It just kind of happens. But anyway, I didn't plan for that. I kind of, like, my idea for Mal was he was the consummate professional. He was the captain, and you don't like
very Star Trek, right? Yeah,
and from the faction he came from, which is based on Star Trek, captains don't have relationships with their crewmates,
right?
They could compromise your decision making, and so that was not something I thought about having, or honestly, even having like real close personal relationships with the rest of the crew, because he's the captain, and especially when Sully always calls him captain, it's like he's got to be the captain. But I think that's one thing I, over time, kind of broke down.
Naturally shifted
into, no, he is, like, while he might be called captain, and he calls himself captain, we're all equals, we're a crew together.
And I think that was something that you did a good job of setting up from the beginning, really, is that, like, you approached the crew a lot more formally than, like, even Sully was. And that did change, like, even outside of, like, specific relationships, just in general, I think that Mal's relationship to the rest of the crew kind of, like, lost some of that rigidity as the story went on.
Yeah. That wasn't something I, like, planned from the beginning. It just kind of...
It's organic role-playing.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't plan it, it just happened, like, pretty organically,
right.
Yeah.
And part of that is me as a player getting more comfortable with Mal, the character, and then also me getting more comfortable with everyone else's characters and how to interact with them, and then also, as the characters spend more time together, just the characters getting more comfortable with each other.
Yeah. All right, let's do favorites for everybody. So we've got your favorite friendly NPC.
Also, your third favorite NPC after Camilla and Lucy.
Your favorite antagonist. Your favorite arc. And favorite scene for your character. So, who wants to go first?
I can.
Okay.
Camilla's the best. I stand by her. I love Camilla.
Camilla's your bae.
I mean, there's a...
Darn right.
I like my fuzzy caterpillar friend. My favorite non-Camilla Lucy NPC was probably Norn. Norn was great. I like the just like put upon guy who just wants to do the right thing, you know? He's just like, I don't care if like no one sees me doing this, I want to do what's right. And I liked how he was just like, the rules say I can't do this, but it would be terrible if you left out the back door, took my keys, drove a tank to this place, and threatened them to get what we need. But you definitely cannot do that, you know, nodding his head yes to go do that.
Mm-hmm.
It would just be so unfortunate if you found my keys in my top drawer when I leave this office for the next 5 minutes and you were just gone when I got back. That would be wrong. Which was kind of like, he didn't say it in those words, but that was kind of the impression he gave. He's like, I don't care what the rules say, you know, we just need to save people.
Norn is honestly kind of one of my favorite, like, he wasn't my favorite one to play, but, like, as a person, Norn, I think, is kind of like, you could make the argument for being the best person. He has he gets the least reward for his efforts, and the most hostility for trying to do the right thing. Like, no one is happy that he's doing the right thing. No one is rewarding him for doing the right thing, and he is still doing the right thing.
Action is his reward.
Yeah, it's like, everything gets worse because he's helping, for him, you know?
Mm-hmm, yeah. Favorite arc?
My favorite arc was the second to last one. I liked having Sully come into his own. I liked...
Describe that one for, you know, hypothetical people who don't remember which arcs are which.
The arc immediately following Homestead's destruction.
Okay, yeah.
That is
so that would be the one where you go to Rogue.
Yeah.
No. It's the one where we go back to Avis.
Oh, right. Yeah, gosh, wow, I forgot.
Sully starts in a coma.
Right, yeah.
It's
Ivana,
the one immediately after Rogue.
The Ivana arc.
And I liked it because, like, Sully comes into his own. He is no longer indecisive. He is very much, I have to take care of this problem. I'm going to do it. He, like, completely accepts his mantle as Harmony, so to speak. Like, and there's still some growth he has, but, like, for Sully, like, the end of his character arc is very much the beginning of that arc, and you just get to see, like, him be, like, in charge and, like, in control and understanding what he needs to do, which I enjoyed.
Yeah.
I also liked, Ivana, where it's just like, man, like an NPC that I trusted absolutely none. in the best way, where it's like Marilla was like the same type of thing, but it's like, well, Marilla's going to stab me in the back, where Ivana's going to be like, no, she's going to strand me on a planet. You know, like Marilla will take the easy way out so that I'm not a problem. Ivana would make it so that I have to see her win and know that I can do nothing about it.
She's strategic.
My favorite scene, I don't remember what arc this is in, but it's like after Sully becomes Harmony, I think, and just like talking, like he just like has a nice talk with Camilla and they like meditate together as like the galaxy's falling apart. And I just really liked that scene for myself.
Yeah.
My favorite scene from someone else is when Jyla's crying over Sully's body. That was very well
don't take
acted.
my favorites.
I can say other people's. You just like, that's my favorite scene of the whole game. You did a very good job. Is there another favorite I'm supposed to list? Nope,
you got it. Who's next?
I'm taking notes so I can remember what to say. Because I am one Moscow mule down. So
notes time it is.
Time to write things down.
What was the first question again?
Favorite friendly NPC?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I also really like Camilla. Like, that's the problem is I feel like we're going to all have similar answers. Every time Camilla was, air quotes, on screen, she was just so much fun to be around.
Yeah.
Outside of her and Lucy.
Anybody on Homestead?
Oh, not particularly now that I'm thinking about it. What was the... I feel like this is not points in my favor, but for me saying this, but what was the Guild of Commerce like captain's name?
Waylon.
Was that Waylon? Okay, I thought that was him, but I just want to wasn't sure if that was the right name. I had fun interacting with him, which leads me into my favorite moment, which was when Mal got to pretend to be Guild of Commerce, adopted a very bad Southern accent, and I'm gonna I'm gonna try to repeat the line I said because I love it. He's like, "Well, I do declare, I believe you have mixed me up for somebody else."
I still enjoy quoting that when it's appropriate.
Right, and like I the fact that I still remember the line. This how many years later or whatever,
right? Yeah,
it was. It's like that. That's got to be one of my favorite moments.
Yeah.
Favorite arc. I'm trying to remember where the breaks were in the different arcs. So when was it that we figured out what the Great Wayfarer was?
That was like one of the middle or later arcs.
I believe that was. Let me see. I have my notes.
With Roke?
So,
that would have been Roke, yeah. That would have been, I think, the fourth? No.
Okay, so the fourth arc is post, what's it called?
Homestead?
Is post Avis. So the third arc was Avis.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, so that's when chaos is just running rampant and the outlaws are kind of on their back foot, like it's dangerous to leave. Camilla wants to go out and fight. This is where you do the job with Marilla to basically sneak past or sneak into Galactic Alliance space. To find the Black Dreadnought, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because that's when we end up going through the portal the first time. Yeah. Into the
weird space,
Harmony Chaos.
Right.
Realm.
This is where you're trying to figure. Yeah. There's the Black Dreadnought is popping up somehow, and you pick up a portal basically, and then chase it.
Yeah, I think it's I don't think it's that arc that I'm thinking of. I think it might be the one after, where we've already stopped the Black Dreadnought, but haven't yet figured out what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the first part of that next arc.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the arc where I believe what's his name? Sully gets backstabbed at the end because you guys free all of the Wayfarers.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I think that arc is my favorite because it was a lot of exposition. It was a lot of story packed into such a small area where it's so many things start to make sense a little more.
The puzzle pieces start fitting together there.
Yeah, we start to understand the scale of the problem.
Yeah, that's when things get real like, oh, this is really bad.
Yeah, and then it ends with one of our player characters is down. And is this when we get back and Homestead's destroyed? Is that the end of that?
Yup.
Yeah.
No, sorry. So that's actually 6. So 5 is where you. Sorry, I got this wrong. So 5 is just where you free the Wayfarers and find out the ship belonged to the Wayfarers. 6 is where you go to Roke and come back. Right?
Okay.
That was all in the same arc.
Oh, it was. Oh my gosh.
It
Yeah.
was all in the same arc.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
That's why Vinny's like short, and I'm like short.
Yeah. Where that one, like, there's just so much happens. We had, like, we're coming off the high of having defeated the Black Dreadnought, and then we have to go back because things are happening. We free it, we go to Rogue, Sully gets backstabbed, we come back, Homestead's destroyed. It's just, like, so much happens in, like, that span of that one arc. Oh, and then I think there was one more question, right? Was the
Favorite antagonist?
Favorite antagonist.
honestly Chaos, the Avatar of Chaos, just because every time he was on screen, he was just so maniacal and so like you just wanted to punch him in the face, but you can't.
Right. Yeah. Perfect. All right, Mandy.
All right. Favorite friendly NPC, my top one's Lucy. I love him. We got some great moments, great scenes. But if I had to pick someone aside from Lucy, it would definitely be Waylon. I really liked the enemy to friend situation. Like that arc was just like it was a really fun way to deal with that where he's first the enemy and then we got to help him. So,
yeah, like he very easily could have been like against us for a long time.
Yeah, well, and then the fact that like he was indebted to us, so it was nice to see him all the time. And we, he had a fun bit of snark that was entertaining to deal with. So, very fun. Favorite antagonist. So, other than Chaos, because I think like Chaos is obviously the main one and he's kind of doing all of this. I really like Truth.
Oh,
that was really interesting. And it also reminded me, I don't think anybody else has read these books, but it's by Tamara Pierce. And she has, I believe it's, most of her stuff is quartets, but I believe it's 2 books. About a girl who ends up being a spy and dealing with that sort of like underground thing. And so it just reminded me a lot of that, and I loved it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Favorite arc. I have talked about this before. I love the Avis arc. The Avis arc, I think, did such a good job throughout basically all of it of forcing us to keep the tension high. And now I can't remember, but I think that might have been around the time we were recording 2 episodes a night too. So like not only is the whole arc having to keep the tension high, but we're also doing it like 2 hours at a time. So I'm a big fan of feeling like we're on edge and we're all paying attention and wanting
There's
to be playing.
There.
Yes. The momentum in that arc was great because, we start out, figuring out how do we get down this gravity elevator, and we deal with the guards there. And then we manage to get away from them, and we're kind of okay for a little bit. And then we end up under the city, and there's a building, and Jyla and Vika mess up, and now we gotta just run and shoot. And then all culminating.
Yeah, we were physically running like 80% of that arc.
Yeah, this was like just a very high intensity arc. All about that. Loved it. And then this was the hardest, question, was the favorite scene. So I have like 3 different ones that I'm like bouncing back and forth. Cause like, I love the end of the Avis arc, and I love the end of the Marvin arc, which was the arc before that. I think the final episodes of those arcs, especially towards the end, really, really strong. Strong character-wise, strong story-wise. I thought it was... Those ones especially had just like that nice bow at the end. Even though I think the Avis one ended with Chaos taking over, so it still was open-ended in that regard. But then if I had to pick like a specific scene between Vika and someone else or anybody else, I really like basically all my scenes where I had downtime with either Lucy or Mal. I thought all of those ended up with like they were just nice scenes. Sometimes they went somewhere, sometimes they didn't, but like the one that I think of with Mal was like Vika brought Mal like a drink on the what's it called, of the ship, and you know,
the officers.
No, it was just like the front of the ship or the bridge.
Oh yeah, and they're sitting in the chairs.
Yeah, and they're just having like a nice moment. And like same thing with Lucy when we were on the like ship in the chaos water. Like just a nice moment between those characters. So
yeah,
favorite scenes. All right, Caitlin, it's your turn.
Oh, no, I was going to say Cody, because he gets to do favorites, too.
Oh, that's right. Cody does get to do that.
So my favorite villain is, it's kind of like difficult because most of my villains become good guys by the end of it.
I'm having that struggle, too, yeah.
But my favorite villain to villain at all of you was Ivana, just because, I think she was maybe a little misunderstood, but also not, in that she was not trying to get one over on you guys. It's like, if you asked her, like, what's your plan? She's like, I'm taking over the Interstellar Council because there's an opportunity for me to climb a ladder. That's it. Like, that was not a lie. And she would work with you guys as long as you served that end. And as the second you didn't, she would throw you under the bus, you know? And I liked playing a character that was just like, yeah, I have ambition. That's it. There is no, it's like not trying to be something else, like, oh, you know, no, I'm not gonna do that. It's like, no, she's like, no, I'm taking over. Like, it's a mess. I think I can, so I'm going to.
Yeah.
Because the status is not quo. The world's a mess and she just needs to rule it.
Yeah.
That's exactly her.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. She believes that. I think my favorite NPC is Lucy. I want to have a better answer than Lucy, but the reality is, I think that Lucy, for where he started, got to change the most into an NPC I liked.
Yeah.
Like, he kind of started as a joke and then became something not a joke. And I actually really liked that about him, that he was able to grow and not just be a silly character. Like, and I think this is probably my favorite scene, which there's a lot of them because, like...
You're in a lot of scenes.
By the fact that I'm, you know, like, a lot of the times the other side of a scene, I've done a lot of them, and especially, like, ones where I was Marvin. It's just a ton of scenes with me and Mandy being those two characters, which was really fun, and I thought all those scenes were great. But I think the scene that was, like, I don't think we planned out a lot ahead of time, but I also thought just was the most real and had the most interesting things to say was, like, after... What's it called? After Homestead fell... and you guys were all on that planet by yourselves, and Lucy and Jyla had a scene where they were talking about, like,
yeah,
we're people that can risk our lives, and we can slip back into this comfortably. It's like they both are... There was this mode of being that they got used to not having to be, but especially for Lucy, it's like, I liked not being a soldier, but I can go back to being that. And when push came to shove, he could, you know, and it's like... And
there's like a bittersweetness to that. I was going to mention that about Lucy, of like, he started out as a joke character and then became like a genuine, like, fun character, like being part of the team. And then there's like this kind of heartbreaking moment where he has to go back to the serious place that we made fun of originally.
Yeah.
And just like what a transition that is.
Yeah,
so.
And it was an interesting, because we didn't talk about that beforehand, did we? I don't think.
I think we were just like, oh, we should have a scene because we have downtime together.
Yeah, right. We were just like sitting on the ship together, but I liked that crew of people that were all of the like...
Oh, because it was Salvador,
who's probably the most underwritten NPC that I want to love, but was only there for 5 minutes.
Yeah, no.
But Salvador was supposed to be like a devil may care, like daredevil kind of guy, and Lucy was like...
No, he was fun when he was in scenes. I just don't think we had as much time with him as other people.
There just wasn't a lot with him, and then Lucy was like literally engineered to not be able to feel fear. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, I can do this, and someone needs to. So I really liked that scene. And then my favorite arc was Avis. I think Avis is probably where there were the most... It was where I introduced one of my favorite NPCs. It was where the story really... Like, if you look at a story circle, there's, like, normal world, hell world, you know? And there's, like, a division there about where the story is. That was descending into hell world, where chaos is winning, you know? So that turning point of things are getting bad now, I really liked. I think it had some of the best moments and introduced a faction that I really liked, because I really liked the Keepers, what they became. So there was just a ton in that. And also that had the most, like, by the seat of my pants, like, okay, I guess, like, none of this is written down, guys. We're just going for it, you know, because you guys just went so off the rails in that.
It's also where we met Camilla.
Yeah, right. Just, it was just, like, a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, and I guess one thing to mention about that arc in particular was, was that the second arc?
Third
arc. What was the second arc?
Mandy's family.
Marvin.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess I'm trying to think through what happened in each of the different arcs, but I guess that third arc is the first time we had a named character, someone that we've interacted with closely, die.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, because Grizzle...
Yeah.
Because Grizzle dies, yeah.
Well, he doesn't die. He comes... Well, he gets better. We fix him eventually. And then
yeah, but we very much did not know that was possible.
Right. Yeah, or like, I guess that's the first time we're shown that, I guess in particular, that the Outlaws are not invulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. All right, so favorite friendly NPC, Camilla. Love Camilla. I love Lucy too, obviously, but...
I mean, Lucy's a close...
I'm offended on Lucy's behalf. Like, how dare you say Camilla, the other NPC that I made up?
Right. For favorite, like, other NPC and antagonist, it's tricky, right? Because, like, so many antagonists become allies. So I'll just put two here for different reasons. Waylon was so delightfully punchable. Just like every time he comes on comms, you know, like Caitlin and Jyla want to punch him, you know, which was fun. And yeah, he just like, he knew exactly how to push buttons and be completely, uncaring about it. And then Marilla, I loved like how deliciously suspicious I was of her every single moment that we had to work with her. That was just a lot of fun of not knowing, like, she could really backstab us, but we got to keep going. She could really backstab us, you know? And so I like that tension a lot. Favorite arc, I think, as a whole, Avis, because of all the tension there. And I remember when we were introduced to the truth cult, like on a philosophical sort of level, being like, oh, wow. Oh, no, this is really a problem.
By the way, that was winged 100%. Everything. Like, I think that one is, I think we maybe talked about this after the fact.
We did.
But basically, like, there's a point where you guys are, like, walking down the street and you see an apartment building with a black flag. That's all I had written. And then you, like, went into a sub-city. There was a tower with a communication array. All that was made up. None of it was written down. Because you guys just kept looking further. And I'm like...
Stop looking.
There's a secret staircase.
There's always another secret, Cody.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess if I know this, I know we're not doing this quite yet, but now since we're on this topic, if I had one criticism at the moment, it would be that the truth cult wasn't a bigger part of the story. But I understand why, because they weren't meant to exist. I do like that they showed up at the end, though. I do like that they kind of made a reappearance towards the end. I kind of wish they had more going on.
Originally, they were supposed to have more of a part, and then just the way the story happened, I couldn't integrate it in well, because you guys left Avis.
Right.
Because they were really important on Avis, and then they just it didn't happen. It was actually supposed to be more important. Like, that's why there were the black flags on Avis and why I even introduced the concept. And then the rest of the story, that's like a thing that I didn't follow through on very well. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. It's a great sequel arc or sequel campaign. Like, I'm vaguely joking because Cody's not going to run that game, but like, it's not a bad place to pick up a game where it's just like, we didn't take care of this cult.
Yeah. So I really like that tight, just like how tight that arc was and how tense and just all the things that we found there. The arc previous, though, has so many moments that I forget are all encompassed in that arc, because that's when Jyla and Sully fly off into space. That's when Mal pretends to be from the Guild of Commerce. That's when Jyla blows up the stove. That's when we meet Marvin and his wife's name that I'm totally blanking on. Lyra. And Vika has all those good scenes with Marvin, and then like Vika gets slugged.
You have the best line in like the entire campaign when
Lyra
walks in and you're like, well, space me sideways.
Right. So that one has like so many memorable moments like packed into that arc that I really like.
But it doesn't have any buffalo wings.
But it does not have buffalo wings. Which is a fabulous scene. And I love, along with...
Yeah, that's the one that made me want to quit playing games with you guys.
Right. And there's been so many moments that you've wanted to quit playing games with me, so that's really saying something.
It is, yeah.
I think my favorite line I got that I had that made Cody want to end playing games with me was when I called Chaos Spoocifer for Space Lucifer. He's like... If you call my NPC that, I'm gonna I'm banning you from the podcast. And then I waited a year and a half, never mentioning it. And then we meet the guy, like the avatar of chaos, and I call him Spoocifer. And Cody did not react, and I'm so sad.
At that point, I'm just trying to deflate you. It's like any reaction is encouraging. I just have to shut it down.
Yeah, because I think Cody realized that if he reacts, then that means you won.
Yeah, right.
But I did really like writing. So I wrote out the Jyla's monologue to Sully's comatose body. That I went in and planned because I knew I wanted to get it right. And it would be very easy in a scene like that if I did not go in with something to say, to just like have it not tie together. So I really liked that, and I really liked getting to like workshop some of my own writing. I think Cody gets to do that a lot more when he's doing like all of the intro scenes, which I loved every single time in the last arc, just getting to have cool scenes with really the NPCs that we know and love. So I just was like squealing with delight every time those came up. But I did like really getting to write something and tweak it and edit it and then deliver it. That was a lot of fun for me. Let's see. So anything that you didn't get to explore with your characters that you wanted to? I don't really have anything. I love Jyla forever. And I don't feel like there's any stones unturned particularly.
Well, I don't know if I would say this is unturned, but like I meant for Sully to be much more of a doctor than he ever ended up being, really. Like he ended up being more like magic doctor, and I meant him to be like more of a doctor. That's why he was like his second best stat was his smarts and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I didn't explore that a ton, but like I'm not like disappointed in that.
Yeah.
And then like with the campaign ending, like there's not to explore like where the characters really go after this, and it's hard to make this clear, especially because like the ending in my head for Sully is kind of a downer, and it's like you don't want to end a campaign on a downer. But like in my head, like Sully's just like kind of a broken man at this point, where it's like he like became the god of his own religion, and then had to like give up a lot of his values of like doing no harm and killing things. So it's just like, hey, like in a perfect world, he'd be like going to therapy to like deal with all this stuff that he'd had to do.
Yeah.
Which, like, there's not really a good way to explore this. Like, I don't want to have, like, 15 therapy sessions as an epilogue with Cody.
But he's not old. Sully's got a lot of time left.
Oh, he does. But, like, I think, like, in a lot of ways, it's just, like, Sully, like, just goes back to being a doctor because he's, like, given up godhood and, like, is like, broken to a certain degree. Like, not, like, that he'll never be fixed, but I think there's, like, a lot of, like, he had to give up of himself that is not...
He has to find new meaning in new ways.
Yeah, and it's also just like, I don't know, it's like him dying and coming back to life was like really traumatic for him because he had to like really like deal with like, I have to go kill something, and then he had to kill it.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Stuff you wanted to explore?
I kind of have an answer to this, but I'll let, others answer first.
Yeah, so something I kind of had plans for, like, it wasn't like something I like absolutely wanted to happen, but I had plans for it in case it did happen. I was ready for if Mal got slugged ever, and it didn't happen for Mal. But basically, I made up a Galactic Alliance serial number for him that when he would like start coming to back on Homestead, that would be the thing he says, because it's like, it's his duty when he's captured and doesn't know where he is that he says his name, rank, and serial number and stuff. That would be like the first thing he says because he's kind of back in Alliance mode until he fully comes to. But never happens. Never came up.
Yeah, that's cool though. I
wish we explored slugging a little bit more than we ended up doing. Honestly,
that's fair. Yeah, yeah, because we talked about our whole presentation to the crew of like, so you've been slugged. And...
I forgot about that. I love that presentation so much. Like, just, like, the most boring thing, and, like, man, we talked about how, like, Jyla had the whole thing memorized because she'd been slugged enough times.
Yeah.
And she just, like, loathes it, but Sully would not let her get out of doing it.
I think the only thing I would have wanted to explore more with Vika, would have been closer relationships with Mal and Jyla, especially. Because there were definitely, there were seeds of that.
I think earlier, too.
Much earlier. Yeah. Much earlier, there were, seeds of Vika with those two characters being a lot more. And I think a lot of, what could have been, a good scene ended up, being narration. Which is fine. But I think that really that's the only thing I would have wanted to explore more is the second family, because at Vika's core, it's family. And I think that would have being a little bit more overt about the Outlaws becoming her second family was something I think I would have been more interested in exploring if I had thought about how to get that done.
Yeah, because I think Jyla and Vika have some scenes earlier on when Jyla and Sully get together, her trying to figure out, how to be in this relationship.
Yeah,
she's not been in that sort of committed relationship before, and Vika as mom Jyla sees her as somewhat of a mentor of she can do stuff with people.
Well, and what's funny is my initial thought for the character, and like I said, I feel like the beginning, the first arc, I kind of had to drop a lot. But my initial thought was actually something similar to what I'm going to be doing in Cody's next game, which we can get into that later. But I originally thought of Vika as being the super mom character, the very maternal part of the crew, the one who always has snacks on her type of thing. And that ended up not being the way we went, partially because we were in a space opera where we're firing guns all the time. But it is interesting how much changed. And so, yeah, somewhere in there, there's a character that didn't happen, but I'm okay with that.
I just had a mental image now of Jyla on the turret or on the guns, firing rapidly at an enemy ship, and then Vika comes up behind her. It's like, "Are you getting enough sleep, dear? Have you eaten today?"
Cookie
I have orange slices.
and Gatorade.
Jyla will accept orange slices and Gatorade while she's firing. I will say I found my original like write-up for my character.
Ooh.
And I had written down hooks for other arcs. Like, I think we had talked about like, backstory character arc stuff. And so I had like written up a whole thing about like Jyla having a sister who has a daughter, and like she's not in speaking terms with her parents because she was dishonorably discharged from the military, but she still keeps in contact with her sister, and she's kind of like in the family like shipping business, and like just coming up with a hook of like there's something wrong, and she calls up Jyla out of the blue. So I think we did some like the Marvin arc was pretty similar in premise, like somebody from your family calling you back unexpectedly. But that was something that
if we're talking about
that was something I'd found that I'd written down.
If we're talking about character origins, I want to talk about how Sully came up. I decided before Cody's like, we're going to start a new campaign. And I'm like, cool. Like, I want to play a doctor character. I haven't played a doctor ever. And then Cody presents this game. He's like, here's this game. And by the way, like, it's a game where you have these clone slugs, so you can't die. Like, death is not an option. I'm like, cool, that sounds amazing. Can I be a doctor? And Cody's like, did you just ask to be a doctor in my game? Where you can't die, where like medical professionals aren't needed.
We get pretty beat up.
And I'm like, didn't think about it, but yes, can I be a doctor still?
All right, Cody, did you have something for us?
Yeah, there's a bunch. So this is tricky for me. I wish that you guys had been outlaws doing just regular unchaos related outlaw stuff for a while before chaos was introduced. The problem with that is, especially while we're recording, and also just because of the way RPGs actually go IRL, games tend to peter out more than they tend to end definitively. So my goal here was, when I wrote the story, I wrote the end definitively. Like, this is where we're ending, right? I like have had a point that I have been going towards this entire time with like an arc already planned. I liked that. But I wish that you guys had kind of gotten to be just outlaws for a while and seen the way that faction interacted in the galaxy without the context of a larger force that would unite people.
Yeah.
I think you guys did a great job of playing up the Outlaws United people, just because you guys did that a bunch, so it worked out okay, but I wish there had been a little bit more of that. Because mechanically there was supposed to be like heat with each faction where you could like choose to favor one over the other, and it would like advance you with one and make the other one dislike you more, so when you go to a planet you might not be as well received. But it's just like, in an RPG that we're recording and where I want it to end definitively, I couldn't waste a week on us just doing nothing but side questing, like that really wasn't an option.
Yeah, and that's something that if we post like the rules that we were going off, because this is a homebrew of Powered by the Apocalypse, we came up with our like totally unique ship combat rules like for the system. This was all like from twice. Yeah. This was all from scratch, or like modded from something else. So that faction interaction is something that
it was like in the
another
book.
group another group could do.
Right. Yeah. If anyone ever wanted to play this.
Yeah. And the reason I said twice was we had one set of rules for ship combat. We used them a little bit, didn't like them, and rewrote ship combat.
Right. And I think it turned out really well.
Well, and that happened. Ship combat was the one that had the most like large, like total redo. Like it was basically all thrown out and all came back.
To the point where we actually do have a Gamer Noob where we practice the new rules.
Oh, yeah, right. We did a simulation. I think we recorded it, but I don't think we ever posted it.
No, it is a Gamer Noob.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes, it is up.
Yeah, where I was like, you're in a simulator and we're trying the new rules out.
Yeah.
Which was a great idea. Like, honestly, I'm really glad we did that.
The rules of ship combat in the galaxy have changed. Here's a simulator to try out the new laws of ship combat.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, like, we say that we overhauled ship combat, but we also did the same thing to the other combat. We were just more subtle, where Cody's like, hey, I don't like this, and changed, like, for like 3 arcs, he like cut out. You cut out a piece like every arc for 3 arcs in a row. So by like from start to like mid game, it's like a completely different physical combat too.
Yeah, well, and that was like always my intent. Is like I wrote up rules and then, you know, they had never been play tested, and then once I did, and really, okay, that's another thing actually, is I made it way too easy for you guys to overpower yourselves, which actually made it kind of challenging on me near the end. It was like dice rolls were approaching meaningless, and it just really wasn't much of a game anymore, and I just kind of had to lie about that. The last 2 arcs, basically.
I mean, we still failed real hard sometimes.
You did, but you also weren't power gaming, and had you been, and had I not been pretty intentional about underpowering certain things, there was... For me, it became difficult to balance without also feeling like I was taking stuff away from you guys.
And yet, in the final battle, where we get back to the real world and we fight chaos for the final time, Cody just decides, I don't know if he forgot or decided not to, we just never took any damage. We were all almost dead, and then in the final fight we didn't take damage, which I thought was weird.
Well, do you want to know the actual reason for that?
Sure. This is the time to talk about it.
There were basically 2 rounds of combat in that thing. I
mean, 2 rounds of combat were enough to kill a couple of us.
They were, and so basically I was waiting for moments that would kill you. So, like, if you look at the times that you guys did take damage, it was... So there were 2 times that basically people took damage. One of them was Jyla, and that was where, like, Lucy's, like, resurrection saved her. And that was, like, 1 get-out-of-jail-free card. And then basically, throughout the narrative of the story, Zach's choices saved you, Vinny. So there really wasn't ever a time you guys needed to take damage. But also at that point, the combat was over, and I knew that was going to be the case.
Well, I guess the thing I was thinking of was how throughout the entire campaign, it was, you hit them, you get hit back.
That's not actually true. So if you roll a 7 to 9, you could choose to not do damage and avoid taking damage. On a 10 plus, you could do damage and then avoid taking damage. That was like one of the options of the thing. And then also people had armor, and then also by the time we got to the last arc, like if you want it to narratively hit an end in a way that makes any sense, you really just like kind of have to let the story have a narrative conclusion and not base that solely on the dice roll.
Right. And I'm not complaining that we didn't... Yeah, and I'm not complaining that we didn't, like plan out, oh, Jyla has 1 health, we need to make sure she... Like, I'm glad we didn't do that, because that would take a lot of the power away from that final fight. But I just thought it was interesting that we got to that final fight, and then suddenly damage was meaningless.
Yeah.
I mean, I was taking a lot of help actions to defend people, Vinny.
That's also true.
Like, I was spending my turn until I'm attacking, I was defending.
But there's also there's been other times in those scenarios where it's like, it doesn't, a lot of times it didn't negate all the damage, it just negated some of the damage.
Well, and
the fact that it's the final battle, it's the final boss, and we took 0 damage after we left the portal. I'm not complaining about it, it's just something I thought
it was kind of a decision on my part, honestly, to go, like, I could either try to mechanic my way through this, but the reality of that situation, too, was, like, Chaos's health pool was kind of confused just because of narratively what you guys did. Like, him getting gut shot kind of early on, I have no idea how much damage that was. And then he, like, took damage well on his ship, and that was also kind of nebulous how much he had. But that's, like, to me, where games like this get into, like, this tricky thing, and I don't have a solid answer for, which is where you want it to be, at some point, a narrative game where you're, like, telling a story, and that story has to reach a reasonable conclusion. but then you also, like, I want it to feel like a game where you guys can get cool equipment and build a character and have, like, skills that you do.
And have numbers go up.
And those require some kind of mechanics behind them.
But you're also controlling a spigot of emotions and are controlling the flow of that, and that is a lot less mechanical. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it was basically intentional. Like, by the time we got to the last arc, like, I knew I wasn't gonna really be, like, keeping track in that way, and it was more about the dice rolls determining the, like, tension and flow of the scene, not about you have this many hit point pools. The point was you all got there very hurt, and Jyla was hurt the worst. That was the important thing to come in knowing, you know?
Yeah.
And then how that really played out, not gonna go like, oh, you guys had 2 bad rolls and now Jyla doesn't get to have an epilogue, you know?
You mentioned that you had the end arc in your head for a while. Are there any other big last arc changes?
Last arc changes, I mean, not really. Like, basically, well, the last arc was weird.
When you did tell us off recording that some of the confluence of chaos changed.
Yeah. So,
something we did changed things.
Well, actually, no, this is interesting. So, this is like layers of stuff. So when Zach originally said, okay, hey, I don't like this idea of basically Sully sacrificing himself to eternal conflict to keep chaos at bay. Okay, fine. Different story now, right? I was not 100% sure what that was going to be. Part of me wanted to leave it fully up to you guys, like you have to come up with a solution. I kind of decided not to do that because that's a pretty big ask for you guys to be like, make up a superpower.
Hey, you player characters. Yeah, player characters. Finish the story for me.
So then originally it was going to be, okay, so Harmony is going to split amongst the 4 of you, right? That was my original thought. And then I started writing the vignettes and was like, oh, actually, you know what? No, this is cooler, is have it split further, right? Like, all of a sudden, more and more people start being able to use some amount of these powers that are, like, nebulous and ill-defined intentionally.
And the vignettes are some of my favorite things.
So basically, the nature of writing the vignettes meant that I made people develop a connection to Harmony outside of the 4 of you.
Yeah.
And then, specifically with Mandy's character, so originally the ship sinking was going to be like Mandy's moment of like, oh, I'm going to have to like get over the idea that I can't fix everything, right? And kind of come to terms with that. But then that happened earlier when Vinny was kind of doing his thing. So I undid that. And then I was just like talking to Mandy about like, you know, what kind of stuff do you think you would struggle with? And she's like, well, saving everybody is like Jyla's or Vika's going to keep trying to save everybody, right? And I was like, oh, okay, so I also knew at that point that Lucy's moment of... So actually it is amongst the 5 of you, because Lucy was always counted on among the crew, right? So Lucy's moment was going to be sacrificing himself to get you guys through the portal, right? So I knew that was going to happen. And then I was like, oh, so the definitive moment for Jyla, for Vika, was going to be...
One last time you had to mess it up.
They get mixed up in my head, was going to be seeing Camilla and Ivana on one side and Lucy on the other. And her having to make a decision of going, okay, I have to, like, sacrifice myself to save somebody, or I have to sacrifice somebody to save somebody else, right? It was going to be a decision that she had to let go of this idea that she could save everybody. But within the narrative of the character, her reason was like vengeance. It was like, I want to kill chaos and I'm willing to let Lucy die for that. And I'm like, that doesn't really trend with what we're going for. So it also didn't happen then. And then she had another moment where Mal gets pulled under and is like drug into a crowd, and it's like, you can either keep trying to kill chaos or you can turn around and try to save Mal. And she's like, I am killing chaos. And so I'm like,
killing it so hard.
So again, it actually doesn't happen. So I was talking to Mandy about it. I'm like, so the reason at the end of that, like, she didn't have a connection to Harmony.
I was really worried I messed the game up.
No, I thought it was good because I liked that it made it to where there couldn't be this, like, rigid schism between, like, people with a golden eye and people without, and there were, like, two discrete groups. It's like the idea is that this is an intermingled group, and these people can come from anywhere, right?
Yeah, it's people working together despite having like, different power and different interests, and
So even amongst your crew, not necessarily all of you had that moment. In this case, it was, you know, Vika not having that moment, which I liked. I thought that was really good because it kind of like pushed that to the front. And I actually wish I had explored that a little bit more, but we're in the epilogues. What are you going to do? So that was all different than I thought it was going to be, kind of. Like, I generally knew what that was going to be, but that was a pretty large jump. Sorry, that was a long ramble.
No, that's great.
We should do final thoughts.
Final thoughts, and then if you want to give a little
teaser,
sneak peek, like elevator pitch for our next campaign that you're running, that would be good.
And by sneak peek, she means not 4 episodes worth, Cody.
I have 0 regrets and will never stop being myself.
Wait, are we giving a sneak peek for the next game we're playing or the next game that Cody's running?
Next game Cody's running.
The next game I'm running, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you guys had to say favorite final thoughts.
Yes.
I liked it. I had a good time. I'm going to miss Sully. I'm going to miss romancing my fake wife. Who is actually my real wife. I just have to go back to the boring real world now.
Right.
No more Spagic for me, but I will find some equally memorable quote for my next character.
Hey, Zach. I won't.
Anybody else?
I don't want to have final thoughts. I'm really gonna miss Outlaws. I'm a big fan of space games, and I love this crew, and I mean, at least I've got 10 episodes to edit, so I don't have to leave them quite yet, but it's sad. I'm sad. Very, very sad.
Yeah, it's 3.5 years of our life.
Right.
In a time capsule, but the nice thing about podcasting your RPGs is that you have them forever with you, thanks to the internet.
Right. I'm super proud of this. I mean, I know obviously Cody ran it, but I'm super proud of this thing that we have made, so I'm gonna miss it.
Yeah.
Miss Vi.
Yeah, I have similar feelings about it. It's like, I'm sad to see it end because I enjoyed these characters. I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed all the moments we had, but I'm also kind of glad it's wrapped.
Mm-hmm.
Glad that we were able to finish it and actually like, okay, it's done. Like it's not lingering.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it doesn't have loose ends. It was
right.
Yeah. All right, Cody. Get us excited for Wanderlust, our new
I'm going to say
campaign.
my final thought is finally finishing a campaign that I'm actually proud of. Feels really good. It's like this is like the longest work of fiction that I've like finished. I thought all of you did a great job like getting what it was and then having your characters kind of like bring the themes that I wanted to light without me like clubbing you over the head and telling you what to do. So yeah, I just really enjoyed this. I'm gonna miss my NPCs, but I'm excited for NPCs that I'm already planning for my next game. So my next game, called Wanderlust, it's gonna be played in Fate. It's also gonna be some amount of like homebrew rules because I'm done trying to follow rules. I already know that I'm not going to.
We're gonna take Fate and then we're gonna fudge it.
Yes.
That's a Fate fudge joke.
That was a good joke. That was a good joke. So my idea with Wanderlust is I wanted to make a game that kind of like encapsulated two things. That's one is the like feeling of adventure and discovery that I got while reading books like The Hobbit. Like you're off in the woods camping and you hear the howling of wolves and you're scared and like huddled around your little bonfire hoping trolls don't wander through.
And then out of the corner of your eye you spot him. Shia LaBeouf.
I've already done a Fate-based Shia LaBeouf game, Vinny. I'm not doing another.
What?
You're making a face like you don't remember the time that I randomly decided to have you guys wash up on an island with actual Cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
I don't remember
and
this.
for a night, you guys fought and hid from actual Cannibal Shia LaBeouf. That happened.
I forgot about this.
Yep. And then my other thought with nature is that, rightfully so, a lot of our media is given over to, like, conservation messages, right? Totally makes sense. I'm not saying those are wrong. But the part of nature that I've always found compelling is that it is frightening and inhuman. There is a documentary that I've not watched the whole thing on by Werner Herzog where he talks about the jungle, and the way he describes it is there's lots of misery. There's misery all around us. I don't think the birds are singing. They're screaming, right? That is like the reality of being in a jungle is horrifying. Like, awe-inspiring nightmares are in a jungle. There are lions and tigers and bears and snakes and insects and plants that will just kill you with no human malice. That's just what they do. They're terrifying. So I like this idea of exploring something that is unknown and dangerous. It is this idea of discovering nature not for the sake of conservation, but out of fascination with fear. Like, it's kind of supposed to be scary and daunting, and that there's something that grabs us with that. It's this kind of, like, romantic idea of standing on, like, a high place and looking down and feeling tiny. That's kind of what I want to get across. So, that's Wanderlust. I don't know if it's going to be good. We're going to find out. It's going to be weird.
Yeah, we're excited to explore a new world. Thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, keep wandering.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.